Today I want to sit down and talk a little bit about my personal journey with Apex Legends since it released a few weeks ago, but also, and I think this is a much bigger and more important part of this conversation, talk about making really fun games. Talk about the value of people who make really fun competitive games specifically. Because I think a lot of people believe that the only way a game can truly be competitive and truly offer like a high level of mastery and a big skill gap and a big skill ceiling is if it's kind of sterile. And if it's more focused on being fair and balanced than it is on being fun. And I think Respawn is a studio that has consistently defied that mindset. That's also meant that they've made games like Titanfall 1 and more specifically Titanfall 2, where you do have this small group of the community who wants like this hyper-competitive, hyper-fair experience. And when they don't get that, they find themselves very frustrated with what's available. But I think in turn, it is just a really good demonstration of a studio that has fun in their DNA. Like if you've ever seen a Titanfall 2 DLC trailer, it's just a big old showcase of all of the really cool shit you can do in Titanfall 2. Like it's clear that that's what they love about the games they make, and it's why they make the games they make. And they do everything they can to demonstrate it in the most beautiful and stunning and over-the-top ways, which you can totally replicate in-game. That's the big thing, is it's not some cinematic trailer. It's just people who made the game, who love the game they've made, playing the game, and showing you all of the really cool stuff you can do. That right there is the heart of today's discussion. Because I think, for me personally, Respawn started something with Titanfall 2 that they've now finished with Apex Legends. And that is this reinvigoration of my own personal competitive mindset via games that offer a pretty high level of mastery while simultaneously just being a lot of fun. Like Titanfall 2, having slide hopping, a little bit different, a little bit easier than bunny hopping in Titanfall 1, was a huge deal for me. Like it was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm totally gonna go all in on this, and let's spend a bunch of time getting like really good at slide hopping. I mean, this is a big part of this gameplay experience. So let's do it. Let's learn how to slide hop. Let's go all in here. Let's get a sense for the the mastery that is required to really understand air strafing and slide hopping and all of the crazy movement mechanics in this game. Let's learn how to grapple slingshot via our good friend Iniquity. Like, let's do what we can to be as good as we can at this game to an extent. I think I was more focused with Titanfall 2 on the mechanics of the movement, and I always felt like my aim was good enough. I did focus on it a little bit, but I never really went beyond that. I never got hyper competitive. It was just this little flame started burning again, and it reminded me of the Tony Moe I knew over a dozen years ago, who really was hyper competitive, who played in Cyber Athletes Junior League for games like Years of War, and who was probably a lot more angry and frustrated at times. The Tony that I sort of left behind so I could just enjoy games, right? I got a little bit of that without the frustration, but with a little bit of that enjoyment, that satisfaction that comes from that personal progression journey, really feeling like you're getting better at something, which is a really good feeling. And I've had the good fortune of getting that feeling like, every single year with YouTube. It was cool to get it with games again. So when Apex Legends came out, I just expected to like play a Titanfall battle royale, like a Titanfall universe battle royale, and to be really stoked that Respawn was even doing that, because I always kind of wanted them to. And I fell in love with the game, and I fell in love with it mechanically, and I loved a lot of the game design decisions, but I think it's the mental effect that it had on me, similar to the one that Titanfall 2 had, that really pushed Apex Legends over the top for me over the past few weeks. I mean, I gave the game a glowing review, but this is sort of an extension of that review where, again, we talk about the game on a much higher level. We go beyond the discussions we can have mechanically, and we talk about how the game has influenced me and allowed me to return to a competitive mindset while also still just having a lot of fun. And again, it comes down to the DNA of Respawn's game design. Because Apex Legends is just a game about having fun. I think there are so many bits and pieces of design in Apex that just want you to have a good time. I mean, all of the very basic but still really enjoyable movement mechanics. Sliding down a big old hill like a 5-year-old on a sled. Like, it's so fun, but when you start shooting people while you're doing it, it's way fun. Suddenly you take a fun, goofy thing and you turn it into an actually useful mechanic. Like, from a skill perspective, there's a little bit of value to sliding down a hill and shooting someone. And even if it doesn't work out in your favor, at least you look really cool while you're doing it. The same can be said for the zip lines and like the grapple mechanics with Pathfinder and all of the different legends and their little abilities. Like, it's just a game that wants you to have a good time. The characters want you to have a good time. They're having a good time. They're not taking life too seriously. They're just living it up, right? It's just this really wonderful vibe. And so when I started playing on PC with a group of friends who are pretty hyper competitive, they've spent a lot of time playing at a pretty high level competitively, but who also know how to have fun, we all kind of find ourselves intoxicated by the experience that Apex Legends has to offer. And not a day goes by where my buddy Coop doesn't hit me up on Twitter like, games? And it's just like, 30 minutes. Let me finish recording this video and get it rendered. Let's do the Apex thing, you know? And the point at which I got, sort of sunk back into that competitive mindset was the exact same point at which I realized I loved taking risks in Apex. I love playing with my friends and we love just pushing gunfight after gunfight after gunfight. I think a lot of people play that way and it's a lot of fun. But I also love just being goofy and hopping on a zipline and hitting a guy with an arc star, or grapple swinging over the top of a roof into a group of enemies without really knowing what's there, because I know it's gonna be fun. And so the end result of that was me being like, okay, well, if I'm going to do that all the time, and if I'm going to play really aggressively with these guys who are really good at playing aggressively, I need to get better. I need to get at least like 50% as good as they are. And I need to improve my aim, and I need to be more conscious about my shortcomings, and I need to actually look at just becoming a better player, a more competitive player. And I was able to do just that. Like in the past 2 weeks, my aim, my tracking, like everything has improved tenfold. It's better than it's ever been for me. And when I'm like really on and warmed up, I just feel actually confident about my play. I can make pushes that I know I couldn't have made 3 weeks ago, or that I at least wouldn't have had the confidence to make, and that I definitely wouldn't have pulled off if I even attempted to pull them off, So Apex has allowed me, an individual who doesn't really carry that hyper-competitive mindset anymore, to dip back into those waters while also still having a really good time and never finding myself genuinely frustrated. I think when I do get frustrated, it's because I make a really, really dumb error that I've been able to move away from. When you make like what feels like for me like 6 months to a year's worth of progression in 3 weeks, because I've suddenly focused all of this time and attention and really focused it into improving, you just get really frustrated at the dumb mistakes you made 3 weeks ago that you haven't made in 3 weeks. So that's like where most of my frustration comes from, but that's a good thing. I don't mind looking back at my own failures and being like, I could have done this, I could have done that, especially when I play with a group of people who, for the most part, are willing to do the same thing, to be like, I could have helped you there, I could have done this, and we all kind of improve as a team, while, I as an individual have had a lot of opportunities to just get way better at first-person shooters than I ever have been before. And I'm not great. This isn't like a personal lift me up thing. It really is, once again, talking about what a fun competitive experience can do for a lot of individuals who maybe carried a mindset that just doesn't really connect with these sorts of games typically. And I think that's partially Battle Royale, but I think it's like 99% Respawn. And again, that just fun factor that is so baked into their DNA. Like, they are just a group of people who clearly love making games and who love playing the games they make. I mean, you just see it whenever they're on camera, whenever you talk to any of the devs, whether it be on, Twitter, or you see them talking about the game and some of the recent, like, Vidoc stuff for Apex Legends. Like, they're just having a great time. They're just making games that make them laugh, that make them smile, and it's so infectious in the design that, like, I think a lot of people, not just me, are having this exact same sort of experience. You may not be like progressing at the same level as I am. You may not be as interested in the competitive aspect of the game as I am. But there are millions of people out there right now playing Apex Legends, maybe as their first Battle Royale, but maybe even as their first first-person shooter, or at least their first competitive first-person shooter. This game has had that effect on people. It's turned people who have zero interest in playing against other individuals into people who spend every single night with their friends playing a competitive game against other individuals. I mean, I personally have several friends who kind of look at competitive PvP games like this. Like, they played Gears of War with me back in the day. My friend Mandy's that way. Like, we spent a lot of time growing up playing Gears, like, at a pretty high level together, and for her, it's like, man, I spent like 10 years getting good at this game. Like, I don't want to spend more time getting good at another competitive game when I could be playing a lot of other games I really enjoy. But yet, Apex Legends totally sunk its teeth into her, and here we are, like her, my buddy Jack, we're all playing like every chance we get, just like loving it up, learning, failing, getting better, pushing ourselves, understanding the legends, and just having a really, really good time all along the way. And again, that's a really special thing that not many games can do. Not many games can border that line as well as Apex has. I mean, and I've played a lot of competitive battle royales. If you want to get really specific on the genre, I've spent, thousands of hours in PUBG and a few hundred in Blackout. And like, those games are fun as battle royales, but they're not nearly as fun as far as an actual just overall gameplay experience goes as Apex Legends is. The game just manages to sink into you, and if you find yourself down that personal path of progression as I have, it's really satisfying. It feels good to have a game spark that want for personal improvement at a competitive level again. So, am I trying to say I'm like Shroud? No, it's not the point of this conversation. But I think if you played Apex and you've been influenced or affected by the experience it offers mentally in one way or another, you're totally going to understand what I'm saying in this conversation. And I'd love to hear your own personal Apex Legends story down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Nice, Buzz. Oh, yeah, you did. He's like, I've got a longbow, guys. Why are we pushing?